Hello, my loves. Today we're going to look at some more Reddit stories, and if you've enjoyed a Reddit story, why don't you consider hitting the subscribe button? Maybe that's the notification bell too, and let's start with today's story. Story, Forever Interrupted. Me, 20-year-old, met Emily, 19-year-old, when we were two and had been friends on and off until we became best friends freshman year. She was always a bit different and really weird, but in a cool way, and she was never made fun of for it. We just made sense as friends, and everyone knew us as Emily and Claire, the best friends. When epidemic hit sophomore year, we were inseparable. We spent every second together. My mom never liked her, but I could never see why, and most people looked at her as controlling due to my not hanging out with any of my other friends. But I never saw it like that because I had the best time with her and honestly would choose her every time. I had a boyfriend at the time who she hated very much and didn't like me hanging out with him, but he lived far enough away that I didn't see him too often anyway. Emily started being a bit more interested in boys and was dating around a bit before meeting Braden, whom she dated for around 5 months. We both got broken up with at the same time. I think this is where things started to go downhill. Emily handled her breakup rough. She started doing crazy things that I would just go along with, like driving the 40 minutes to his house and sitting outside waiting for him or taking pictures of his house and sending them to him. She constantly stalked him, called him, and left voicemails, but Emily and I were so close that anything she did was an exception, even if I thought it was crazy. I would even go along with it. After this, Emily really started sleeping around and meeting with lots of different guys to hook up. I was totally for it and even encouraged her to have her hot girl summer since Braden was her first for everything and she handled it so rough. I can't remember why, but she ended up losing her car for a bit, probably got grounded, and she had come up with a plan to meet up with this boy an hour away, and of course I went along with it. Since she didn't have a car at the time, her plan was I would drive her the hour away, and then when we were 2 minutes from the guy's house, I would pull over and get in the trunk, and she would drive the rest of the way to hook up with him, and then we would drive home. We make it there, and within 1 minute after the switch, she crashes my car with me in the trunk. We were okay other than a little bruising, and my car was totaled. We ended up lying to the police and saying I crashed my car because her 6 months weren't up yet and I didn't want her to get in trouble. We slowed down after this and stopped acting so crazy. I got a boyfriend, Tyson, 17-year-old, but Emily again hated him and would limit our time together. While I was with Tyson, I liked him so much, but the second I'd be around Emily, I would question our relationship because Emily would just say bad things about him. I actually ended up breaking up with him at one point. Tyson hated Emily but never said anything because he knew we were best friends and he just got over it. My mom was constantly trying to get me to stop being her friend because I was really innocent and never got into any trouble before her. She also told me Emily was being very manipulative, but I never saw that because, in the end, I thought Emma was a great best friend, and I made those decisions too. Tyson and I got closer, and I started spending a bit less time with Emily. She met Landon, 17-year-old, whom she went on a date with, and instantly fell in love, that's how she put it. I was friends with him at one point, and he came from an incredible family. He was just a great guy, so I thought this was good. They ended up hooking up, and Emily came to me to tell me all the details and how amazing the sex was. A couple days later, he broke it off due to him not thinking his family would approve, and the day after, she says she's pregnant. She wouldn't show me the test, but why would anyone lie about that? Of course, I believed her. Landon knew he would get kicked out due to getting a girl pregnant, but he also knew he wouldn't abandon his baby, and he'd have to tell his parents, so he took all his savings and went out to buy his own car so he would have somewhere to sleep. Landon's friends knocked some sense into him and demanded to see a test that Emily would not provide. Thinking about it now, she could not have been pregnant 3 days after hooking up, and that would not show on the test. When Emily refused to take the test, I got so upset with her, and this is when I decided to back away from her a bit. Emily also accused Landon's friends of kidnapping her that night after I left, but I was not there, so I don't know what actually happened. Emily's mom found out about all of this because Emily ended up accusing Landon of raping her that night, so the police got involved. Emily was no longer allowed to hang out with me because I was a bad influence on her. A week after all of this, Emily said she fell down the stairs and had a miscarriage. I completely stopped being friends with her after all of this because I was hurt. She didn't stand up for me, and I stopped believing her lies. Tyson and I stayed dating, and when we finally went back to school in junior year for hybrid, there were lots of rumors about how Emily had another faked pregnancy. She was a huge topic around the school, and everyone knew about what had happened. Emily and I ended up reconnecting over the summer, going into senior year, but I ended the friendship again because I found out she was tracking my location without my knowledge. She reached back out again towards the end of senior graduation with a huge apology, and she told me she was seeing a therapist and had been dating a really good guy. I was a lot more careful, but over time we grew closer, and she had no mess-ups. Tyson was not supportive of us being friends, and he was so worried for me that I assured him that she had changed. She had switched her career choice 3 times, and I was living at the fire station as a sleeper and going to school to be an EMT until I had a horrible call that made me realize I couldn't do it anymore, and I went full-time to being a barista and babysitter on the side while she was in online school trying to figure out what she wanted to do and also babysitting quite a bit on the side. After months of us rekindling our whole relationship, Emily presented this whole idea to me about starting a daycare business together and gave all the details and how this would work, and I loved the idea. I put in my 2 weeks and took all my tips I had saved for a deposit, and somehow we got approved for a cute little apartment while we started getting certified. We got donated books and toys and got a bunch of things from Goodwill, but it came together really fast, and I was so excited because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I loved kids, and this sounded like a perfect career for me. We were barely going to make it by, but I had enough money saved to be there a couple months with no income until we started getting kids. I also want to add that the first day we moved in, I ended up winning the bigger bedroom 3 times, and she threw a big fit and said she would just live at home, so I gave it up to her. She also decided she wanted a puppy after we decided that wasn't going to happen, so that caused a huge fight. She was nasty to live with, and I don't even want to go into details about the gross things she would do. After a month of living there, I went to stay with Tyson for the night, and I got 3 missed calls from an unknown number. They left a voicemail, and it was the police. There had been a break-in at the apartment. I was freaking out, and so was she, and she told me that I had to stay at the apartment more often and not with Tyson because she was so scared. She also told me she was going to add a sliding lock on the door, and I have to be home by 11 o'clock every night or I wouldn't be able to get in even with a key. I fought this and said that was not okay and that I should have access to my apartment at any time, but in the end, she said she was going to do it anyway. She then tells me she's going to back out of the business, and it's all mine, but she's going to continue to live there and pay rent. I was so stressed during all this because I didn't know what I had just gotten myself into. She got the puppy she wanted so badly and never cleaned up after it. I started resenting her to the point where I could barely even talk to her, and our living together was very toxic. I also forgot to mention we got a Ring camera and extra protection around all the doors and windows after the break-ins. She was also cheating on her boyfriend, whom I believe she's still with due to him not knowing. Anyway, 2 months had passed since I lived there, and I went to stay at Tyson's, and there was another break-in. I had been kicked out of the Ring, and she had said it had stopped working. I did not believe anything she said at that point. I talked to the cops and told them everything I knew and what I had thought, and they straight up told me they knew about her fake pregnancy and how her story didn't add up at all, and they think she's lying, and I agreed. She calls me the next day, saying she wants to save our friendship, and we clearly can't live together, so either I need to move out or she does, and I have to make the decision. At this point, I knew I couldn't afford it alone, but I had hope I could get more kids. She told me I'd have to get a roommate because I couldn't do it alone and that I should just move out and her boyfriend can move in, but I didn't want to throw everything I just started away, so she moved out and never spoke to me again and also refused to get the lease. We have not talked to this day, But whenever I tell this story, people are blown away by how insane she was. I do not know why I stayed with her friend for so long. I guess I only see the good in people and have way too much trust. I was clearly very manipulated by this whole friendship. The second she left, my business blossomed, and all my spots filled. I lived by myself with no roommate for the rest of the lease and made really good money. The lease just ended 2 months ago, and Tyson and I signed a new lease on a brand new house for my daycare. I am absolutely in love with my job, and I couldn't ask for a better life with Tyson. I'm so happy I got rid of that crazy toxic friend, but I guess I wouldn't be where I am today, at age 20, without all of that happening. Story: It's a love story. The following is the story of how me, 29M, and my wife, 30F, met and married. Like many other people, my freshman year of college was a roller coaster of emotions. Between adapting to a new life and schedule, trying to make new friends, and the unexpected death of my father, things were changing fast for me, and I was struggling to be my normal, extroverted, happy self. I became involved with a ministry in college, and this helped me find like-minded people who I could not only laugh with, but also have the ability to openly talk about my struggles. My wife was also involved in this same ministry. Over time we would have discussions, but nothing too in-depth or serious. We were friendly to each other, but never anything more than that. Flash forward 2 years and we begin to hang out more and more because of a reason I'll touch on later, and we became really great friends. This would not last long, sadly, as my wife was about to travel the world for the next 2 years doing ministry work in third world countries. When I say doing ministry work, I do not mean she was hanging at resorts 6 days a week and visiting an orphanage for an hour or so. She was truly in the trenches, spending her years in remote villages where they don't have access to electricity or running water. While she was on this trip, she didn't have the ability to talk often, but whenever given the chance, I would talk to her about her stories, and this is where I began to truly fall in love with her. There was only one small problem. See, the reason we began to hang out more and more prior to her leaving was because she began dating a close friend of mine. While she was away on this mission trip, my friend became getting extremely close with another girl. They would hang out regularly one-on-one, openly cuddle each other around others, but according to my friend, nothing more than that. I spoke with my friend about this relationship and how he was emotionally cheating, but he never listened or paid any attention. I felt it wasn't my place to tell my wife about this, because I believed my feelings that I was developing for my herb scared me from being unbiased. After years away, my wife finally returns home. Within a month of being home, my wife's friends told her about the relationship between my friend and this other girl. My wife was aware that they were friends, but she was not aware to the extent of how close they truly were. This led my wife to immediately breaking up with my friend. Now, you're probably thinking to yourselves, wow, this is great news for OP. You have to remember, the reason we became close was because she was dating a friend. Also, as my wife returned from her mission trip, I had freshly graduated college and moved 3 hours away, back to my hometown, to begin a career. I also believed in my mind that my wife was only friends with me because of the relationship she had with my friend. Nevertheless, occasionally I would travel to the college town and meet up with some college friends. When doing this, I would ask them how my wife was doing. They would always keep me updated, and eventually a mutual friend tells my wife that I have been asking how she was. This sparks our friendship as she begins texting me, but still, I lived 3 hours away, so I had no intention of beginning a relationship with her, but it was still nice to be friends again. My wife, being her caring self, began fostering a 2-month-old girl about a year after coming back from her mission trip. She did this while single and working a full-time job. Years pass and I am extremely displeased living in my hometown. See, my father was a small-town hero type of guy. Very well known and very loved. I worked hard to bring positive change in my community, but I felt every action I did I was always compared to my dad. People never meant to offend me by comparing me to my father, but I always felt like if I stayed there I was going to be living in his shadow. I wanted to forge my own legacy. One day I interviewed for a job in the town I went to college in. Somehow, I get hired. Over the summer I move back and immediately I am excited for a multitude of reasons. Soon after moving back my wife and I begin spending a lot of time together. The 2-month-old girl is now 3 years old, and my wife and I do the silly thing and get married within 3 months of me moving. This became the greatest decision of my life. Since getting married my wife and I have adopted the girl, made a few kids of our own, bought a house, and are truly living the fairy tale life. We've been married for several years and life couldn't be better. I tell this story because I want others to know you never know who the love of your life is. It could be a stranger, a friend, or a friend's girlfriend. This world is too short and crazy. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the read. This is my first time ever really making a Reddit post. Story: my emotionally abusive ex is making me go crazy, but a part of me still loves him and can't let go. For context, my ex and I were together for a while and it was pretty good until it wasn't. He began getting really upset and would ghost me, as well as constantly telling me that I am making things worse and am always making things weird. I am also one to get insecure really easily, so some of these things may not seem bad for some people, but through an insecure overthinker's lens it's bad. Basically, he blocked me on everything one night and said he needed a break for a month. A month goes by, I sort of forget about him, but he texts me and the emotions come back. He said he's sorry. I forgave him. We sort of start talking again, but it was usually me sending the first text or making the first move. Fast forward to a few days ago, where I was supposed to call him but instead see him calling with his girl BFF that I literally cannot stand. Everything she says is always right to my ex and he is blinded by everything she tells him. He invites me to the call however and I try talking but the said best friend is being dry while he was away from keyboard, and then I just started going quiet as she was only targeting questions towards my ex and pretending that I wasn't there. I end up texting my ex that it's getting a little awkward and I felt as if the girl BSF did not like me. He did not take this very well, and got very mad and told me I'm the one making it awkward and messing everything up, that I'm the problem, etc. And I would believe him every time. This is the kind of things that make me go into panic mode, and then start blaming myself on everything and just overall putting unnecessary pressure on myself. He then kicks me out of the call and just starts calling her and tells me he doesn't want to talk to me and that all I do is make everything worse. I attempted sharing my feelings to him, but all he would do is be sarcastic and say things like, "You completely read my mind since you know everything about everyone," and things like that. And would constantly ask if he could leave the call with me whenever there was a brief pause for him to put his input in. When he wasn't being sarcastic or asking to leave, he would just mumble okay or yeah in the background as a way to rush me through. Literally cried myself to sleep that night. Yes, seems like no big deal. But I have an attachment and a love still going on with my ex, and all my brain does is remember all the good times I had with him and not the other. However, my heart reminds me that I need to get out because I'm putting a lot of weight on my shoulders and letting a man decide my self-worth. Letting go of someone you love is so impossible for me, but I know I have to, but I just can't click the block button and delete him on everything. It's as if something stops me. I really need advice on how to get out on this situation. Story: my wife and I, our love story. My wife and I met in high school. We started as acquaintances in some of the same classes. I never really thought much of her other than she was in my class and she was cute. Somehow, I, and a bunch of other people became a friend group at a lunch table. Soon, this friend group would all hang out on the weekends. One of the other guys from the group asked her out. I wasn't disappointed or anything, I really didn't give it a whole lot of thought other than, good for them. The only dates or dating I did were with girls who asked me out. I did date a girl from the end of senior year until I left the area, military. We did the long distance thing the whole time I was in. When I was home, I hung out with my girlfriend and my high school friend group, which included her and her boyfriend. He was one of my best friends since elementary. I found out later that nobody in my friend group liked my girlfriend. My wife confessed, after we were married, that she always thought I was too good for her. In my last year in the military, I was home on leave. I was hanging out with her and her boyfriend, and I asked him why they weren't engaged or married yet. They had been dating almost 6 years by then. They were both evasive. I didn't know they were having trouble and were on again, off again. I joked that if he didn't marry her in a year, I would. Thinking about it, that was probably the last straw. If that wasn't, the next part probably was. So, being the buddies that we were, I asked her to go Christmas shopping with me. I was shopping for my girlfriend and had no idea. Once again, I found out later that she fought the urge to grab my hand that whole day. So my leave came to an end, and I had to go back to my duty station. Before I left, I stopped by her house. We chatted. When I was ready to leave, I said goodbye, and we kissed. I turned, walked to my car, got in, put the keys in the ignition, then the world stopped. What the fuck just happened? A couple of months later, she came to visit me. I lived in a touristy area, and she wanted to see it. Allegedly. Later, I found out she wanted to know if that kiss was a fluke or what. So she flew in. I picked her up, and we hung out that day like the buddies that we were. That night, we went back to her hotel. We talked and laughed and had a good time, as buddies do. It got late. I was going to excuse myself. She said, or you could stay here. I was confused. There was only one bed and no couch. If I was going to have to sleep on the floor, I'd rather go home. She had gone into the bathroom and came out in a little nightie. Nothing super sexy, but not a whole lot there. Lying next to an almost naked woman in my underwear, it still took me longer than it should to make a move. When I did, it was freaking me out. I was kissing my best buddy. I was looking straight at her breasts. Again, what the fuck is happening? We were attached at the lips and other places the rest of the weekend. A really long story made a little shorter, we made the year deadline. Within 6 months, we were engaged and married 5 months later. That was 2 kids and 30 years ago. We're still buddies. Sometimes I look across the living room, she's sitting in her chair, and I think, what the fuck just happened? Story: the first boy I loved. Once upon a time, in a small, picturesque town, there was a charming little school where children's laughter filled the air, and dreams were born every day. In this school, there were 2 students, Emma and Jack, both in the 5th grade. Emma was a bright, cheerful girl with a heartwarming smile and a love for books. Jack, on the other hand, was a shy boy with a passion for drawing and a talent for making people laugh. Their story began on a crisp autumn morning. The school bell had just rung, and students were bustling about, getting ready for class. Emma, carrying a stack of books, tripped over a loose stone on the path and fell, scattering her books everywhere. Jack, who was nearby, rushed to help her. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, offering his hand to help her up. Emma looked up, slightly embarrassed but grateful. Yes, thank you, she replied, taking his hand. As Jack helped Emma gather her books, they started talking and discovered they had a lot in common. Both loved reading adventure stories and drawing imaginary worlds. From that day on, they became fast friends. Every day after school, Emma and Jack would sit under a large oak tree in the schoolyard, sharing stories and drawing together. Their friendship grew stronger, and they became inseparable. Emma loved how Jack could make her laugh, and Jack admired Emma's intelligence and kindness. One winter afternoon, the school announced a talent show. Emma and Jack decided to participate together. They spent weeks preparing a skit based on their favorite adventure story. Emma wrote the script, and Jack designed the costumes and props. They practiced every day, laughing and encouraging each other. The night of the talent show arrived, and the school auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and parents. Emma and Jack stood backstage, nervously holding hands. "We can do this," Emma whispered, squeezing Jack's hand. Jack nodded, smiling. Together. Their performance was a huge success. The audience laughed and cheered, and Emma and Jack beamed with pride. After the show, they received a standing ovation and a special award for their creativity and teamwork. As they walked home that night, under a sky full of stars, Emma and Jack felt a bond stronger than ever. They knew they had something special, a friendship that would last a lifetime. Years passed, and Emma and Jack grew up. They went to different high schools and then colleges, but they never lost touch. They continued to share their dreams and support each other through life's ups and downs. One summer, after they had both graduated from college, they returned to their hometown for a visit. Walking through the old schoolyard, they found themselves under the same oak tree where their friendship had blossomed. "Remember our talent show?" Jack asked, smiling. Emma laughed. "How could I forget? It was the best night of my life." Jack took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "Emma, there's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time. I think I've loved you since that day we met." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked into Jack's eyes and saw the same kindness and warmth that had always been there. "I love you too, Jack," she whispered. Under the old oak tree, where their innocent, school-age love began, Emma and Jack shared their first kiss, sealing a promise of love that had started with a simple act of kindness and had grown into something beautiful and everlasting. And so, their story continued, a testament to the power of friendship and love that started in the heart of a small, picturesque town and blossomed into a lifetime of happiness together. Story: Redefining Singlehood. In the vibrant city of San Francisco, lived a man named David. At 29, David was a successful software developer, known for his innovative solutions and dedication to his work. He had a stylish apartment in the heart of the city, a close-knit group of friends, and a plethora of hobbies that kept him busy. Despite his fulfilling life, David often found himself at the center of discussions about his single status. One evening, during a family gathering, David's aunt leaned over and asked, "David, you're such a catch. Why are you still single?" David smiled politely, hiding his frustration. "I'm happy with my life right now. Being single allows me to focus on my career and passions." The question lingered in David's mind long after the gathering. It seemed society viewed being single as a problem that needed solving, but David saw it differently. He decided to explore and articulate why being single was not only okay, but also a fulfilling choice. David had always valued his independence. Being single allowed him to make decisions without having to consider a partner's needs or preferences. He could travel spontaneously, take on new challenges at work, and spend his free time however he chose. This freedom enabled him to grow personally and professionally. "Remember when I decided to backpack through Europe last summer?" David said to his friends during a casual get-together. I booked the tickets the week before and left without any second thoughts. Being single gave me that freedom. David cherished his friendships deeply. He had a diverse group of friends who shared his interests and supported him through thick and thin. Being single allowed him to invest time and energy into these relationships, creating a strong support network. I have time to help my friends move, celebrate their successes, and support them during tough times, David explained. These friendships are incredibly meaningful and fulfilling. David had a wide range of interests, from rock climbing to playing the guitar to coding side projects. Being single gave him the time and space to explore these hobbies fully. He joined a rock climbing gym, started a local band with friends, and developed an app that he had been passionate about for years. I love the freedom to dive into my passions without feeling guilty about neglecting a partner, David said. Growing up, David had seen the financial struggles his parents faced and learned the importance of financial independence. Being single gave him control over his finances, allowing him to save, invest, and spend as he saw fit. He enjoyed the freedom of making his own financial decisions and planning for his future. I've been able to save for my dream of buying a house in the city, David shared. And I don't have to consult anyone else about it. For David, happiness and success were not defined by a relationship status. He found joy in his accomplishments, his friendships, and his personal growth. He believed that being single allowed him to live authentically and pursue his true passions without external pressures. Happiness isn't about fitting into someone else's expectations, David said. It's about living a life that feels right for me. As David shared his insights with his friends and family, they began to see his perspective. They realized that his choice to remain single was not out of necessity, but out of a desire to live a fulfilling and independent life. David's story serves as a reminder that being single is not a problem to be fixed, but a valid and fulfilling choice. It's an opportunity to grow, pursue passions, and build meaningful relationships on one's own terms. David's journey of embracing singlehood is a testament to the power of self-love, independence, and the endless possibilities that lie ahead when one chooses to live authentically. For David, and many like him, singlehood is not a state of lack but a canvas for creating a rich and meaningful life. Story: you and your 3 closest friends who you've worked alongside with since Nom breakdown and somehow attract zomboids. John, what the fuck do you think you are doing, you absolute mental case? Asterisk, you hissed, trying to keep a low level of volume in your voice despite the rapidly growing horde zomboids, mindlessly approaching us. What do you think, dumbass? Asterisk, he said, very casually as he put the famous Don't Look Back in Anger Oasis cassette into the player, turning the volume up using the dial on the radio. You're gonna attract more of these bastards, are you insane? Asterisk, I once again quietly exclaimed, watching John turn the volume louder than I had ever heard. We are already gonna shoot them, why can't we go out listening to our favorite band? Asterisk, we have suppressors. Asterisk, I exclaim, my face having a look of despair. Not for shotguns. I know you have your AR-15, but we all have M4s, asterisk, John said, humming the chorus to the beloved song we all had sang before our cars had run out of fuel. We had driven about 40 miles west in hopes of reaching the military base to recuperate with our family who were being held safe there, reason being that we had served in Vietnam, entitling our families to safety and protection, given by the military. So don't look back in anger, I heard you say. Asterisk, John and Harry sung, as they fired their M4 shotguns into the oncoming horde of zomboids. Come on, Liam, you need to start killing these inbred fuckers. Asterisk, you hear John say to you, mowing down the next 4 zombies with his beloved shotgun. I hadn't wanted to shoot them because I still couldn't come to the realization that my best friend Peter, who had not only fought aside me in Nam with the rest of the boys, but who was also mowing down the zomboids approaching us now, had been bitten on his neck, by his wife who lied about being bitten. He told me that I should be the one to kill his corpse, and I had wept more tears than I could fathom. At first I heavily declined and cried in his arms, and then as we started driving he said it would be the only thing that lets his soul be at peace when he passes, so I ultimately agreed. He smiled at me and put a cassette of AC/DC into the player, shaking me while singing in seat dancing. I started to shoot the zomboids with my assault rifle, state-issued, which I bought at an auction after being ordered to return it, along with the rest of my platoon and their firearms. I had worked as a Navy SEAL with my 3 other best friends in what's known as a fire team, usually consisting of 4 soldiers. We had gained intel and reconnaissance on Nguyen Van Lem, a prolific war criminal who had murdered innocent South Vietnamese women and children. After that we did direct combat in a squadron on 12, participating in close-quarters combat, such as raids, ambushes, etc. At this point only a fifth of the zomboids had been killed, and they were slowly gaining on us. We decided, after around 1 minute of consideration, to enter the one vehicle that still had gas and get away from the horde. "Let's ram these bastards," Peter and John both said excitedly, taking the Oasis cassette out and replacing it with a Metallica cartridge. "You know what, fuck it, yeah, let's ram these cocksuckers," I shouted with my West Brooklyn accent louder than the currently playing Master of Puppets. "When did you loosen up?" John says, laughing at my stronger-than-ever Brooklyn accent. "You need to be silenced, young man," I said to him, my voice occasionally breaking with a giggle. He continued laughing as we spoke and eventually rammed them after reversing enough to accelerate to 60 miles per hour, smashing into them. They were all over the windshield, a mix of green and red blood plastered to our car. "Keter, you okay, bud?" I said to him, my voice trembling, worried knowing that the first stage of zombification was already here. No reply. I start to panic and pull over. I drag Peter out as he sputters, "You guys are pretty cool, tell your mom I love her." As tears form and roll down my face he looks at me, laughs with the last remaining energy he had left and slowly passed. Bang, 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 3 shots. I had shot my best friend 3 times, after seeing his skin starting to turn green. "We're 5 minutes away from the military base if we drive fast. Let's go quick and we can bury him after," I say, indicating to the horde, slowly marching like an army from the 15th century. We drive around 7 minutes and arrive at the military base, being greeted by the president, with a flock of security behind him. I had counted at least 15 of them before shaking the president's hand, being congratulated for my outstanding work, to not only protect the country but to protect my area as a police officer, giving my life to the United States of America. I thanked the president and walked to my wife, kissing her on the forehead and hugging my children. I watched my 2 remaining friends recuperating with their families, walking into the barracks. Later on that week we had gone back to where Peter had passed, taking him back to outside the base, digging him a grave, putting a tent over his grave, attaching his badges to a batten of wood, hammering it into the soil like a fence. After we finished the grave I put a chair in front of the wood and cried, wishing I hadn't have lost my brother. A story about unrequited love. A story about unrequited love. This story is about a guy named Tom and the girlfriend of his dreams, Emily. Tom and Emily have been close friends for a long time, having been in the same class together since middle school. Tom always admired Emily for her beautiful appearance, strong personality, and gentle soul. However, Tom always kept his feelings to himself for fear of losing the precious friendship they had. Every time he saw Emily smile, Tom felt happy inside without daring to say it. As time passed, Tom kept his feelings a secret and felt increasingly uncomfortable when he could not share his feelings with Emily. One day, Tom decided to change and tell Emily about his feelings. He told himself that if he didn't say anything, he would never know what Emily felt about him. One weekend afternoon, Tom invited Emily out for coffee to talk. Under the warm sunset, Tom sipped a cup of coffee and said the things he always kept in his heart. He talked about his deep feelings for Emily, about the pain in his heart when he secretly loved her for a long time. Emily was surprised and silent for a moment, then she gently placed her hand on Tom's shoulder and said that she knew this for a long time. Emily explained that she always felt Tom's special care for her, but she was also afraid of losing the good friendship they had. She says that although she doesn't have the same loving feelings as Tom, she still wishes to maintain their close friendship. With understanding and courage from Emily, Tom realized that even if they did not become husband and wife, they could still keep their precious relationship. They continue to be truly close friends, sharing everything from joy to sadness, and Tom gradually finds comfort in Emily's presence in all its forms. The story of Tom and Emily's unrequited love does not have a fairy tale ending, but it is a lesson in understanding, courage, and the value of true friendship in life. Story: My ex-best friend went insane. Me, 20-year-old, met Emily, 19-year-old, when we were 2 and had been friends on and off until we became best friends freshman year. She was always a bit different and really weird, but in a cool way, and she was never made fun of for it. We just made sense as friends, and everyone knew us as Emily and Claire, the best friends. When epidemic hit sophomore year, we were inseparable. We spent every second together. My mom never liked her, but I could never see why, and most people looked at her as controlling due to my not hanging out with any of my other friends, but I never saw it like that because I had the best time with her and honestly would choose her every time. I had a boyfriend at the time who she hated very much and didn't like me hanging out with him, but he lived far enough away that I didn't see him too often anyway. Emily started to being a bit more interested in boys and was dating around a bit before meeting Braden, whom she dated for around 5 months. We both got broken up with at the same time. I think this is where things started to go downhill. Emily handled her breakup rough. She started doing crazy things that I would just go along with, like driving the 40 minutes to his house and sitting outside waiting for him or taking pictures of his house and sending them to him. She constantly stalked him, called him, and left voicemails, but Emily and I were so close that anything she did was an exception, even if I thought it was crazy. I would even go along with it. After this, Emily really started sleeping around and meeting with lots of different guys to hook up. I was totally for it and even encouraged her to have her hot girl summer since Braden was her first for everything and she handled it so rough. I can't remember why, but she ended up losing her car for a bit, probably got grounded, and she had come up with a plan to meet up with this boy an hour away, and of course I went along with it. Since she didn't have a car at the time, her plan was I would drive her the hour away, and then when we were 2 minutes from the guy's house, I would pull over and get in the trunk, and she would drive the rest of the way to hook up with him, and then we would drive home. We make it there, and within 1 minute after the switch, she crashes my car with me in the trunk. We were okay other than a little bruising, and my car was totaled. We ended up lying to the police and saying I crashed my car because her 6 months weren't up yet and I didn't want her to get in trouble. We slowed down after this and stopped acting so crazy. I got a boyfriend, Tyson, 17-year-old, but Emily again hated him and would limit our time together. While I was with Tyson, I liked him so much, but the second I'd be around Emily, I would question our relationship because Emily would just say bad things about him. I actually ended up breaking up with him at one point. Tyson hated Emily but never said anything because he knew we were best friends and he just got over it. My mom was constantly trying to get me to stop being her friend because I was really innocent and never got into any trouble before her. She also told me Emily was being very manipulative, but I never saw that because, in the end, I thought Emma was a great best friend, and I made those decisions too. Tyson and I got closer, and I started spending a bit less time with Emily. She met Landon, 17-year-old, whom she went on a date with, and instantly fell in love, that's how she put it. I was friends with him at one point, and he came from an incredible family. He was just a great guy, so I thought this was good. They ended up hooking up, and Emily came to me to tell me all the details and how amazing the sex was. A couple days later, he broke it off due to him not thinking his family would approve, and the day after, she says she's pregnant. She wouldn't show me the test, but why would anyone lie about that? Of course, I believed her. Landon knew he would get kicked out due to getting a girl pregnant, but he also knew he wouldn't abandon his baby, and he'd have to tell his parents, so he took all his savings and went out to buy his own car so he would have somewhere to sleep. Landon's friends knocked some sense into him and demanded to see a test that Emily would not provide. Thinking about it now, she could not have been pregnant 3 days after hooking up, and that would not show on the test. When Emily refused to take the test, I got so upset with her, and this is when I decided to back away from her a bit. Emily also accused Landon's friends of kidnapping her that night after I left, but I was not there, so I don't know what actually happened. Emily's mom found out about all of this because Emily ended up accusing Landon of raping her that night, so the police got involved. Emily was no longer allowed to hang out with me because I was a bad influence on her. A week after all of this, Emily said she fell down the stairs and had a miscarriage. I completely stopped being friends with her after all of this because I was hurt. She didn't stand up for me, and I stopped believing her lies. Tyson and I stayed dating, and when we finally went back to school in junior year for hybrid, there were lots of rumors about how Emily had another faked pregnancy. She was a huge topic around the school, and everyone knew about what had happened. Emily and I ended up reconnecting over the summer, going into senior year, but I ended the friendship again because I found out she was tracking my location without my knowledge. She reached back out again towards the end of senior graduation with a huge apology, and she told me she was seeing a therapist and had been dating a really good guy. I was a lot more careful, but over time we grew closer, and she had no mess-ups. Tyson was not supportive of us being friends, and he was so worried for me that I assured him that she had changed. She had switched her career choice 3 times, and I was living at the fire station as a sleeper and going to school to be an EMT until I had a horrible call that made me realize I couldn't do it anymore, and I went full-time to being a barista and babysitter on the side while she was in online school trying to figure out what she wanted to do and also babysitting quite a bit on the side. After months of us rekindling our whole relationship, Emily presented this whole idea to me about starting a daycare business together and gave all the details and how this would work, and I loved the idea. I put in my 2 weeks and took all my tips I had saved for a deposit, and somehow we got approved for a cute little apartment while we started getting certified. We got donated books and toys and got a bunch of things from Goodwill, but it came together really fast, and I was so excited because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I loved kids, and this sounded like a perfect career for me. We were barely going to make it by, but I had enough money saved to be there a couple months with no income until we started getting kids. I also want to add that the first day we moved in, I ended up winning the bigger bedroom 3 times, and she threw a big fit and said she would just live at home, so I gave it up to her. She also decided she wanted a puppy after we decided that wasn't going to happen, so that caused a huge fight. She was nasty to live with, and I don't even want to go into details about the gross things she would do. After a month of living there, I went to stay with Tyson for the night, and I got 3 missed calls from an unknown number. They left a voicemail, and it was the police. There had been a break-in at the apartment. I was freaking out, and so was she, and she told me that I had to stay at the apartment more often and not with Tyson because she was so scared. She also told me she was going to add a sliding lock on the door, and I have to be home by 11 o'clock every night or I wouldn't be able to get in even with a key. I fought this and said that was not okay and that I should have access to my apartment at any time, but in the end, she said she was going to do it anyway. She then tells me she's going to back out of the business, and it's all mine, but she's going to continue to live there and pay rent. I was so stressed during all this because I didn't know what I had just gotten myself into. She got the puppy she wanted so badly and never cleaned up after it. I started resenting her to the point where I could barely even talk to her, and our living together was very toxic. I also forgot to mention we got a Ring camera and extra protection around all the doors and windows after the break-ins. She was also cheating on her boyfriend, whom I believe she's still with due to him not knowing. Anyway, 2 months had passed since I lived there, and I went to stay at Tyson's, and there was another break-in. I had been kicked out of the Ring, and she had said it had stopped working. I did not believe anything she said at that point. I talked to the cops and told them everything I knew and what I had thought, and they straight up told me they knew about her fake pregnancy and how her story didn't add up at all, and they think she's lying, and I agreed. She calls me the next day, saying she wants to save our friendship, and we clearly can't live together, so either I need to move out or she does, and I have to make the decision. At this point, I knew I couldn't afford it alone, but I had hope I could get more kids. She told me I'd have to get a roommate because I couldn't do it alone and that I should just move out and her boyfriend can move in. But I didn't want to throw everything I just started away, so she moved out and never spoke to me again and also refused to get the lease. We have not talked to this day, but whenever I tell this story, people are blown away by how insane she was. I do not know why I stayed with her friend for so long. I guess I only see the good in people and have way too much trust. I was clearly very manipulated by this whole friendship. The second she left, my business blossomed, and all my spots filled. I lived by myself with no roommate for the rest of the lease and made really good money. The lease just ended 2 months ago, and Tyson and I signed a new lease on a brand new house for my daycare. I am absolutely in love with my job, and I couldn't ask for a better life with Tyson. I'm so happy I got rid of that crazy toxic friend, but I guess I wouldn't be where I am today, at age 20, without all of that happening. Story: a little love story. Freshman year of high school, this girl Taylor asked if I wanted to date her. I said no, that's fine, I have a girlfriend. She asked again, and I said no. 2 weeks later, I broke up with my girlfriend, and my friend Jerry was asking me who I could mess with next because I was lonely. He brought up Taylor, and I said she already tried to get at me. I'm cool off her. He laughed and asked me to repeat what I said in a sarcastic voice. I did and didn't think much of it. 3 weeks later, I found out they're talking, and she said I lied about that for some reason. I didn't really care and let them be. They dated for 8 months, and Jerry was a close friend. A year and a half later, after they broke up, Taylor and I started talking as friends. Our conversations took a provocative turn and occasionally became sexual. It grew from that to meeting parents, doing relationship things, talking 24/7, saying I love you, and seeming to care a lot. Jerry had no idea, but I thought he wouldn't care. One day, about 4 months ago, Jerry, Fred, another close friend, and I took acid. We had a conversation concerning Taylor and how good she was in bed, unprovoked from Jerry. He showed me videos of him having sex with her, unprovoked. He still didn't know we spoke. He bet me $100 that I couldn't have sex with her in a month. We were all high, and he was calling me a pussy, so I said okay, I'll do it. I told Taylor about the whole thing. She hated me at first, but still came over because I was honest. Jerry found out about the whole situation in a PlayStation party 2 days after he made the bet. He was eavesdropping on me and Tyler, another close friend, talking about it. I was asking Tyler if I should tell Jerry or not because I didn't know if it would hurt his feelings or if I should not have her come over at all and forget about it. Tyler said just tell him, and I said okay, I will. Jerry ended up trying to coerce me into saying it the next day because he knew. I told him about it, and he said I was wrong for keeping it a secret when I was looking out for his feelings. She was reading his texts to me, and he was obviously hurt. I was looking out for him. She still came over. My mom busted in, and she had an anxiety attack, so we did not have sex. We cried together about everything. She left early due to the anxiety, but still talked to me as if we were in a relationship afterward. She tells me there's a low chance we're gonna have an actual relationship, but she constantly tells me there is a chance and does things like look at apartments, dogs, and baby names, all that sweet stuff. She said I can't let them know she's talking to me still, so I kept it under wraps. They were still acting funny towards me, so I cut my close friends off for her. She was all I had. She cut me off 3 weeks ago, saying I didn't give her enough attention. Jerry used to cheat on her multiple times, and she would still come back to him. And she stopped talking to me because of attention? We're both in a bad place mentally, and she's gonna break me down after building me up? She's so grimy and carefree about the situation too. Won't tell me a word of why she did it. Now I'm friendless and alone with nothing to look forward to. I told her many times she was what I looked forward to, and she said it was sweet and she would never leave me. Just to say it's my fault she's leaving and she did nothing wrong, all females disgust me. She took a year and a half to convince me she was different, and she broke my trust completely. If you have a girlfriend now, cheat on her and break her heart. For the boys. All girls are the same inside, no matter how much they portray being different. They will abandon you without a second thought. Heartless creatures. Story: A Love Confession. At 30 years old, Nathan had built a comfortable life for himself in the bustling city of Chicago. He worked as a software engineer, had a close-knit group of friends, and lived in a cozy apartment downtown. But amidst all his accomplishments, one thing eluded him: love. Nathan had always been shy and introverted, often finding it hard to express his feelings. But there was one person who had captured his heart for years: his best friend, Emily. Emily and Nathan had known each other since college. They shared countless memories, from late-night study sessions to spontaneous road trips. Nathan cherished their friendship, but over time, his feelings for Emily grew into something deeper. Yet, he never found the courage to tell her, fearing it might ruin their bond. One crisp autumn evening, as the city streets glowed with the warm colors of fall, Nathan decided it was time to take a chance. He couldn't keep his feelings bottled up any longer. He planned a small gathering at his apartment with their close friends, hoping to create a perfect moment to confess his love to Emily. As the night unfolded, laughter and conversations filled the room. Emily, with her radiant smile and infectious laughter, was the center of attention, as usual. Nathan watched her, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. He rehearsed his words in his mind, trying to find the right moment to pull her aside. Finally, as the evening drew to a close and their friends began to leave, Nathan asked Emily to stay for a bit longer. They sat on his balcony, overlooking the city lights, wrapped in the warmth of their shared blanket. Emily sensed something was on Nathan's mind. "Nathan, is everything okay?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. Nathan took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. "Emily, there's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time." Emily looked at him, curiosity and a hint of apprehension in her eyes. "What is it?" Nathan's heart raced as he spoke. "Emily, you've been my best friend for years. You've always been there for me, through every high and low. And over time, I've realized that my feelings for you have grown into something more than friendship. I've fallen in love with you." There was a moment of silence that felt like an eternity to Nathan. He watched Emily's face, trying to gauge her reaction. She looked surprised, but not upset. A mix of emotions played across her face as she processed his words. "Nathan," she began, her voice soft, "I had no idea you felt this way." Nathan nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "I've been afraid to tell you because I didn't want to risk our friendship. But I can't keep these feelings to myself anymore. You mean too much to me." Emily reached out and took his hand, her touch sending a reassuring warmth through him. "Nathan, I value our friendship more than anything. And I've always cared about you deeply. This is a lot to take in, but I need some time to think about it." Nathan felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "I understand, Emily. Take all the time you need. I just needed you to know how I feel." The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Nathan. He tried to stay busy with work, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Emily and their conversation. He feared he might have jeopardized their friendship, but he also felt a sense of liberation from finally being honest about his feelings. A week later, Emily called Nathan and asked to meet at their favorite coffee shop. Nathan's heart raced as he made his way there, not knowing what to expect. When he arrived, Emily greeted him with a warm smile, easing some of his nerves. Nathan, she began, I've thought a lot about what you said. Our friendship means the world to me, and I don't want to lose it. But I've also realized that I have feelings for you too. I've been so focused on protecting our friendship that I didn't see what was right in front of me. Nathan's heart swelled with hope. Emily, you have no idea how much this means to me. Emily smiled, her eyes sparkling with emotion. Let's take this one step at a time. I want to explore what we could be, together. But no matter what happens, I want us to always be honest with each other. Nathan nodded, feeling a wave of happiness wash over him. I promise, Emily. No more hiding my feelings. As they left the coffee shop, walking hand in hand, Nathan felt a sense of contentment and excitement for the future. He had taken a leap of faith, and it had brought him closer to the woman he loved. Their journey was just beginning, and whatever lay ahead, he knew they would face it together. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.